Welcome, everyone, to our latest episode of Comic Book Ketchup. I'm your host, Christian Ashley, for Systematic Ecology. I'm joined by the newest host of Systematic Ecology, along with one of our other hosts who's not here today, but Kevin Schaefer. How are you doing today?
Christian, doing great. Yeah, happy to be here. Yeah, it's my first episode as like official like new co-host, so happy to be here. I for listeners who don't know me, Kanan is my from Star Wars is my avatar. So we can maybe do another episode where I'll talk more in depth about why I chose that character and everything. But yeah, been on the
Sure.
show before and happy to be here.
I don't think we've done a Rebels episode yet, so that's something we can
Ooh,
definitely do at some point in time.
Ahsoka is next week, so I would be down.
Oh, absolutely. We'll have to talk about that for what's new as well when we get there.
Yeah,
So, uh, obviously, this is comic book catch up, guys. We're Systematic Ecology. We are the priests of the geeks. We're going to be bringing this to you live to our patrons first, and then to you, the good people on YouTube. So, if you want to listen to us live doing this, head over to Patreon, send us a little, however much you think we're worth. I'm not going to argue with that. And you get to participate in this. We have live comments as well for people who are able to come in. So have at that. Otherwise, I think we're just going to get into the meat of the discussion here. And Kevin, would you want to go ahead and discuss The Hunger and the Dusk, please?
absolutely. So, The Hunger and the Dusk, I was actually recommended on this show a few weeks ago. Didn't even know it was coming out. And this is a new fantasy book written by G.W. Wilson and illustrated by Chris Wildgoose. It is a fantastic high fantasy series. I've only read the first issue so far. I don't know if the second one is out yet. I believe it will be a 12 issue series, and it's from IDW. And this is just one, while the first issue is pretty expository, it sets up this great world. And the basic premise is that there's this long-standing rivalry between humans and orcs. They're the last kind of creatures on this world in particular, and they are faced with a new threat that threatens both their species by the end of the first issue, and so that forces them into this very loose, chaotic alliance. And as it's set up in the first issue, there is going to be romances. There's going to be, this question of why has there been this long-standing rivalry, and what was at the center of it. So it has very echoes of a lot of other classic fantasy stories, but I'm particularly reminded of like Saga. You have these long-standing warring species, but what is the root of that? And can they move past it? And what is this new threat that poses their entire world, and how does that affect them? And so this is a gorgeous book from start to finish. I think from an artistic standpoint, what I really like is how Chris Wildgoose balances the darker aesthetic with the more beauty and just like it's a really gorgeous book to look at. And this is clearly a world that is not all terror and hopelessness. There is beauty juxtaposed with despair, and I really like that dichotomy there. And G. Willow Wilson, of course, does amazing characters, amazing world building, and I'm really excited to see where this series will go from here. Christian, have you checked it out yet?
I have not. I had a couple questions while we're here.
Yeah, sure.
So you said humans and orcs are primary
Mhm.
protags for this. Are there other races as well, or did you say something about them leaving or something like that?
It's this like new race. I'll have to look up the name in a sec, but because it's been a couple weeks since I read this one, but it's a new threat that threatens both their civilizations. So yeah, humans and
Okay.
orcs are the only ones like left as right now, but then there's this new threat that poses both. It's against both of them, and they have to reconcile
Okay.
with that. And so like the book opens with this big orc massacre, and kind of it dives into the origins of one of the main human characters and sets up that conflict. But now by the end, they're forced into an alliance, and you're seeing, oh, how will that work? And again, there's clearly friendships and romances that are going to be set up and explored. So I'm really excited to see where that will go from here.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of good fun.
Yeah,
So you'd say this is primarily fantasy, or are there
very
sci-fi
high
elements
fa-
as well?
very high fantasy. I mean, you can make comparisons to sci-fi anyway, but it's very much like in the vein of like Brandon Sanderson or any kind of epic fantasy. And again, it's a 12 issue series, and it's one of those, like, I'm really glad I picked up the first issue. This is, I think, definitely a book I'll collect like in issues and trades, because it'll read really well in the collected format. And I'm excited, and it's one I understand for people who want to wait till it's all finished so then get the complete story. But I do highly recommend going out and picking up at least the first issue just to get a taste for this world. And who knows, this could be a collector's item one day. So, go ahead and pick up a couple. Okay. But it will read really well, I think, as a graphic novel format. Kind of in the same way, like, I don't know if you read Tom Taylor's DC book, Dark Knights of Steel. That's also very, like, that is an excellent one. That's like, it's a high fantasy set in the DC universe. And it's also a 12 issue max. So it's, there is a lot of exposition in this first issue, and I'm sure more will be explored as it goes along. But as of right now, I'm really excited to see where it goes, and we'll definitely be picking up the rest of the story.
Okay. Yeah, as far as DC is concerned, I'm slowly getting back into it. I'm caught up to Action Comics, and right now I'm about 8 issues behind for Zdarsky's Batman run, and I'm really enjoying that. Failsafe is a tremendous villain introduced there. So that's where I'm at there. Now, what I'm actually reading right now, to no one's surprise, it's Marvel. And we're going to go to the Avengers number 4. It's, of course, written by Jed MacKay. And we have been introduced here essentially at the start when this new team was assembled by Captain Marvel, Carol. It still feels weird for me to call her Captain Marvel. I'm so used to calling her Miss Marvel, even though I know it's been years. So, and then she's assembled this new team, and now Kang was beaten by this group of people and has said, hey, there's some bad dudes out there. One of them being the Ashen Combine, which have attacked the Avengers. They started to attack the Earth as well. And we pick up in issue 4 with Captain America, this being Sam Wilson, Captain America, and Black Panther T'Challa. Kind of after what had happened in Sam's series, like they're kind of at odds with one another. And of course, there's that whole, I wasn't caught up with the last Black Panther run, but T'Challa made some decisions there that made people very unhappy. So everyone's kind of like, oh, girl, we don't like you right now.
Yeah.
And it's the two of them forced to work together. While at the Vatican, we go and we see Thor confronting this almost like an actual depiction of an angel you kind of see from scripture. This being known as Idol Alabaster. Idol Alabaster, sorry. Idol Alabaster, who has essentially tried to make, I think it's a god in this world, but Thor confronts her, fights her, and he's doing pretty well, but unfortunately, whenever he hurts her, he hurts all the people she's forcing to worship her. So he kind of has this mix of, oh, I could beat her, but am I going to kill all these innocent people to do that? So it's something that gives her the edge in this fight that eventually she's able to take him down because, Thor is just not going to do that to those, poor people. Then we've got, I'm learning new people's names here because these are all new characters they're fighting, these new villains. And I actually kind of like them, which is weird. Normally when new villains are introduced and they warf an old character, you go, oh my gosh. Yeah, sure. I'm sure they're the biggest, baddest things in the world. But like, MacKay's done a really good job with them so far. And we have Scarlet Witch confronting, I think he's called like the Dead or something like that. So I cannot remember his actual name. But as a result of using her powers and growing in fear, Chthon, or however the heck you pronounce his name, starts whispering in her ears, getting inside of her head, and it causes her to lose herself a bit well. So right now it's looking pretty dark for the Avengers, but this is comics. Like, they're going to win in the end. And we do stop this issue with Sam and T'Challa meeting this being called the Impossible City, which is kind of like this weird, like, ship city they're kind of on right now. So I'm very interested to see where things go from here. Are you following the Avengers at all, Kevin?
No, but I like, there's not really many ongoing Marvel books I followed in a while. But when you brought up the point of the Black Panther run, I've not read it, but I've heard about that as well. That I believe that was the John Ridley run, and I mean, he's a great writer, and it was interesting. But it seems like he was, like you said, trying to take a different approach, and maybe not make T'Challa as likable or at least question his decisions, which I always think is an interesting motive. But yes, it got a lot of backlash, and so but I'm glad that they're at least building on that narrative. And and I really like Jed MacKay. I think I was introduced to him through trying to think of, I want to say it was a Spider-Man spin-off book, maybe.
Was it Mary Jane and Black Cat?
It was a Black Cat one. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yes, he did a really good job with her solo series as well.
Yes, that was a great one. Like it was one like I would have never picked up otherwise, but it got recommended, and a podcast co-host really liked it too. So that was really, and it's really cool to see what his career really building and doing all these different stories. But no, this does sound interesting though. Yeah, so this is, I mean, number 4. So it doesn't surprise me that there's another number 1 like this year on like so, but like that's Marvel and DC both.
Yes.
But like, does it still? I mean, was it a company wide reboot, or was that like just Avengers got back to a number 1?
For this is after the end of Jason Aaron's run.
Gotcha.
And they wanted to reboot it after that. He went for 60 some issues. I wasn't always the biggest fan of what he did. It's not like I hated everything he introduced and ideas, but it's not like I wasn't really positive on a lot of them either. So it's nice to get a breath of fresh air here. Because MacKay, he's kind of proven himself, with the Black Cat stuff he's done, what he's doing right now with Moon Knight. I really appreciate that as well. And it's just nice to see characters handled by people who care about them versus what's happening in Spider-Man right now in both books. So
yeah,
the less said about that, the better. So next up on our docket here, you have The Closet. Now, this was something that was written last year, right?
Correct. So I picked up it was. It's a James Tynion series. People have already heard me rave about James Tynion on this show before. I'm going to continue to do so. But this was one. It's only a 3-issue miniseries and available in trade paperback. But I picked up the first issue last year when it came out. When it was recommended to me, and then got the trade a few months ago. And it's a very simple premise. It is a horror book about this family of 3 that's moving, and there's clearly a strained relationship between the husband and wife, and they're moving cross country for the wife's new job, and the husband is taking his son on the road trip while his wife flies out there early to start the job, but he wants to have a bonding experience with his son. And amidst all the issues like his family has been having, he sees this as a good opportunity. And meanwhile, the son is seeing a monster in his closet, and and he can't shake the feeling. He sees it vividly. It comes out constantly, and the book opens on the last night in their apartment before the move. And so both parents try to reassure their son that, the monster is going to go away as soon as we move. And it doesn't. And it follows him on the road trip and then up until the move. And I don't want to give spoilers for the ending, but the idea with this book is that it shows that the demons that we try to suppress and put away follow us if we don't face them. It's they're not really subtle metaphors here, because as you learn more about the father's story and the mistakes he's made, the monster is a representation of that. And again, the stuff that he's tried to bury in the past but is never really reconciled with. And so there's this, like, it's a supernatural element, but it's not as wildly, like, it is a horror book, but more in the sense of psychological rather than something like Something is Killing the Children or A Nice House on the Lake, where there's an apparent monster that is affecting everyone, and there's a lot of violence, and there's still, don't get me wrong, there are great psychological themes there, but this one is very psychological, character focused, and that's what I really appreciated about it. It's illustrated by Gavin Fullerton, who I should probably look up. I don't know his other works, but he does a great job with this series. And so, yeah, this one, I mean, again, it's a simple premise and a very straightforward narrative, but it will leave you really unsettled in a reflective way, if that makes sense. Like it leaves you
Okay.
what like in the same way, like there's a Stephen King short story called Afterlife where a guy dies, goes into the afterlife, and he's in this kind of like limbo state, and he sees everything from his life pass before his eyes, and he has to reconcile with the mistakes he's made, and he's presented with an opportunity to relive his life over and to see if he can never do those things again. And it's that kind of narrative where it's straightforward, but also, very much tackling moral and psychological issues. And I think it's a great character study. So I highly recommend it. It's a very quick read. Like I said, it's only 3 issues, and but it's also one that will not like a lighthearted one either. It will leave you thinking and pondering these subjects. But I think it is really important, and I like that message of don't try to bury your demons and like act like they didn't happen, or act like you're like in this with the father case, it's like his marriage is struggling, and he's struggling to reconcile with being a husband and father, and but he thinks that just by moving it'll fix all that, and it doesn't. His demons follow him with it. So there's a difference between running away from your mistakes and failures and confronting them, and finding redemption and hope.
Now, you said you didn't want to spoil things, but is it more like his past behaviors with how he handled his family, or something else?
More so with his family, yeah. Like he, like I mean, also there's like there's an affair in the past, and there's and he is like, I mean, he loves his son, but is also and the one scene has him venting to an old friend that like he never gets any free time, and that he feels like his life is just a constant stream of mundane circumstances, and there's no spark in his life anymore, in his marriage, and so he focuses more on those kind of things, very real world issues that a lot of people face.
Got it. Well, good. So you said it's just 3 issues. It's already completed.
Yep, it is,
Who
and
did it again?
So written by James Tynion IV and illustrated by Gavin Fullerton. I gotta see if this is Image or not. Let me look that up. One sec here. But but yes, it's very, you can pick it up in comic shops or bookstores. But highly recommend. Again, I talked about Nice House on the Lake last time, and obviously a big Tynion fan. Let me see. Comic. Let's see. It is Image. So, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, highly recommend. Good. And yeah, I do think it has some good, like, just spiritual and humanistic themes in there, as is the case with a lot of Tynion's books.
Yes. Anything else you want to add to that?
No, just great art, great characterization. It's like I said, easy read, but will hopefully prompt discussion.
Okay. All right. Next up on our docket, we have Fantastic Four number 10. And if you cannot tell by this cover, this has a lot of horror elements within this issue itself. I don't know if you've read this one at all, Kevin.
I have not, but I am intrigued by the cover here.
Yes, this is another great Alex Ross cover. I mean, a very iconic artist to begin with, a Kingdom Come and Earth X and all that. And he's still, I mean, he hasn't lost it after all this time. And this one right here, I mean, you think, oh no, what happened to the Fantastic Four? Well, when you get into the issue, like, it's not a covers always lie kind of thing, that trope, but like, these are cherry picked. Let's put it that way. In that we are on this kind of space arc where this alien race is in stasis, and one of them wakes up and goes, "Hey, like the person who was supposed to wake me up so that I could, make sure the ship was running well while everyone else was in stasis, didn't wake me up. The computers like auto woke him up." And he looks around and he sees, oh no, that guy's dead, and he's drawn on the wall a mural of these. pardon the pun, the fantastical images of the members of the Fantastic Four as like almost monstrous figures. And you kind of wonder what's going on here. We get the title, which we learn the alien race is called the Veruziaks, and the Veruziaks, Archship survivors in the Long Way Home. And this is written by Ryan North, and I've not read anything he's done before this, but this Fantastic Four series that he's done, I am so with it. Once again, it's just nice to have someone who cares about the property that he's writing for and the characters within, because like pretty much everyone gets a chance to shine as time goes on. As we learn that 500 years ago, the Veruziaks people, they had fled and they kind of got lost in kind of like a fold in space or something like that, and they're stuck there. And they're trying to find the way out, but they want to make sure all their people are safe, so they only have one person out at a time to, make sure the ship is running well, try and figure out how they can get out of this kind of weird pocket fold dimension, wherever the heck they are right now. And obviously in isolation for that long, you're going to go a little crazy. And what happens first is the guy who, because that's all that's around them that they can see is black, until one day he sees a bright light outside, and it's Johnny Storm, but he's not moving. All he's doing is he's suspended in space, just shining brightly. This one light he can see, because there are no stars. There's nothing except for him. So he's like, who is this figure? What's going on here? And as the weeks keep going on, he eventually just kind of, dies. Just from, it goes over like 100-year period, so there must be a very long-lived alien race at that. And the next one comes up, and she notices there's this monstrous thing that keeps attacking the outer hull of the ship. And just every 3.33 seconds, it repeats and repeats. Obviously, this is the thing. So she tries to confront him, opens this hole into space, almost dies, thinks she's destroyed him, but then the next 3.33 seconds happens. She starts pounding on the hole, and she just goes crazy, just hearing him over and over again. Until we get to the next guy, who unfortunately, there's this invisible barrier he can't run past. And then this figure of a skeleton comes out that slowly gets muscles, slowly gets, organs and skin. And you see, oh, it's Sue. It's the Invisible Woman. And it freaks him out. And he kind of dies of fright. And then the next guy, 100 years later, sees all these little, like, worm tentacle things that keep popping up out of, like, the bottom of the ship. And obviously this is Mr. Fantastic, but they keep coming out. And I love the way that North has really played with his powers, too. Like, he's made him more than he just stretches. He's made him more than all that. Like, he's made some really fun ways to use this. Did you ever watch Parasite? Do you know what that is?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Great movie.
Not the Korean film.
Oh, never mind. Oh, sorry. No, I was thinking the movie.
This would be the anime.
Gotcha.
A couple issues ago, there's like, I'm sure that has to be a reference to it, because you could, like,
yeah, puts
an eye there, and this just hand going a weird shape. But in this one, it's a very horrifying thing of like all these little things just popping out, like worms and tentacles all over the place, and it causes this guy to also just end up killing himself by ricocheting one of his laser bolts. And then we get 100 years after that, the next person realizes, wait, what if these things that are attacking us aren't monsters? What if they're trying to help us? And goes through that process of figuring out, okay, what's going on here? And then we get the current point in today. So 500 years in the past is where we started. This is the present day. And it's a Fantastic Four showing up and go, oh, wow, this ship just appeared out of nowhere. What's going on here? And so they're investigating. So they realize, oh, we're moving way faster than them. So all the people on the ship are seeing is them at different points in time. So they only see aspects of the thing. They only see aspects of the Invisible Woman. They see her slowly becoming corporeal again, which is why he sees skeleton, organs, muscles, all that first, and then her actual body. And they manage to solve the problem without anyone on the ship knowing they're there. outside of the ones who appeared before. So they see that mural of themselves and go, okay, maybe we might have frightened these people. Let's see if we can fix it. And they do. They leave. The ship is able to leave. Then we get 500 years after that. They've landed on the planet they wanted to go to, and they have this big like painting of the Fantastic Four as like their patron heroes now, because without them, they never would have gotten to their home planet. And I love this issue. I don't know how the getting this just kind of kept rising in me as I kept talking about it, but it's so rare for me to feel like that with a comic nowadays. It's more like it's going to happen to Peter next. What terrible thing is going to happen to Spider-Man? Oh no, the X-Men are dying again. That's never happened before. Like, no, it's nice to have a comic where I could just have fun. Take it away.
Oh, well, I love this description, and I mean, between the Alex Ross cover and then the horror influence, it almost sounds like Alien meets Fantastic Four, and I love that aesthetic. And and I totally agree that you said that, and this it's a problem with a lot of just ongoing characters and properties where it's hard to feel any sense of urgency at a certain point. It's like someone dies, okay, well, they're gonna get rebooted in a few months, I mean, or it doesn't feel any real danger. So to hear you say that there's both danger and intrigue and adventure and stakes, all in just this issue alone is really exciting, because I think that's what has turned off even a lot of longtime readers from some of these like I said, longstanding properties, is that lack of urgency and just kind of repetition. So this one definitely sounds like a really intriguing Fantastic Four run, to say the least.
Yes, and I mean, once again, the run that came before this was Slot, one of my best frenemies in the world. We have interacted on Twitter before. It was not positive. Yeah. But then again, I don't think I'm alone in that regard. And I just did not care for what he had to make with the Fantastic Four. Kind of the same way I felt with Aaron for Avengers. It's like, you want to tell your story, you can tell your story. Just don't expect me to like it.
Sure.
This I like a lot. And let's say the way that everyone has a role within a story. There's not one. It's not just the Reed Power Hour. It's not Susan's Power Hour or the Thing or the Human Torch. It's everyone has something they got to do to contribute because they're a team, because they're a family. And that's when the Fantastic Four, in my opinion, is always at its best, when they're working together, even despite their differences.
Oh, I think you said it best. And I'll just say on Slot, like, I mean, I haven't read his Fantastic Four run, but I love the majority of stuff he did with Spider-Man. I mean, Superior Spider-Man is one of my favorites. But he has, I mean, he's a bold writer. And I mean, he does, I mean, as a writer myself, I think it takes a lot of courage to do something that you commit to and you want to, that may not always sit well with fans. But yeah, so your opinion is totally valid. But this one, it's
don't feel like you have to placate me.
Oh, you're good, dude. You're good. But like, you're not the first person that has criticized that run, and but I'm glad you found a newer one that is to your liking and that captures the essence of the Fantastic Four really well.
It's gosh, it's so nice to have that. All right.
Yes.
Next up, in our last comic for discussion tonight, we have Far Sector. Now, I assume this is some sort of Green Lantern spinoff.
It is, yeah.
Absolutely nothing about this. Like the last Green Lantern I'd heard about that was new was Jessica Cruz.
Yes.
And the only reason I know she exists is because of the Justice League versus the Fatal Five.
Yeah, that's a great movie too. Yep, and she's got there's some really good. If you're interested in exploring her character, I can recommend some comics. But Far Sector, I mean, this is actually a book. If you know nothing about Green Lanterns, you can jump right into, because this is part of DC's Young Animal imprint. So it is Young Animal was well, I don't know if it's still running or not, but it was an imprint created by Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance fame for DC as like sort of very much like Vertigo and Black Label, an indie imprint that showcases books that are sort of outside the main continuity, so that they don't have to worry about does this line up with this Justice League book or this or that. They can tell really separate independent stories, both superhero related and stuff like like they do Doom Patrol there, and they'll do a bunch of other really weird out there stories. And so this is one of them. So Far Sector is a 12-issue series written by N.K. Jemisin, who is a renowned sci-fi and fantasy author, and DC sought her out for this book specifically. I believe, because I read the foreword, and I believe that this character who's on the cover is Sojourner Joe, who is the Green Lantern in this book. I believe she existed somewhere in continuity a long time ago, and Gerard Way and some of the other editors were able to find her and said, like, ooh, I think I want to explore this character. And so they immediately thought of Jemisin as the best writer to tackle it, because she tackles very sociopolitical issues in her books and can do big space operas and fantasy and all that. And so, and detective stuff. And this book combines all of that. And it's illustrated by Jamal Campbell. The art is spectacular. But so the story itself is this Green Lantern, Sojourner Joe, is a new recruit to the Green Lantern Corps, and she is assigned to this planet far side of the galaxy where the first murder has happened on the civilization in centuries. And so she's sent to investigate that. And that's how it starts. It's just like, Green Lantern going to investigate the first murder in this peaceful civilization in hundreds of years. And it's a great setup, but and you think it might just be kind of a crime drama or a mystery. And it is that, but it is so much more, because what you learn is that this civilization is comprised of 3 different species that have had various wars and conflicts in the past, and are now under the supervision of this head council that they use in this thing called the emotion exploit, designed to tone down and suppress people's emotions. And then on the counter to that is that there's this drug, it's called Switch Off, which Switch Off is the counter to that. It's a drug that nullifies the emotion exploit. And so I bring up those two concepts because it gets to kind of the heart of this, is like I said, there's been this long-standing peace, but you come to learn, is this really a peace, or is this kind of like a false sense of order designed to prevent conflict? You know what I mean? Like, it's like there are still some very much unresolved issues between these species, and there are people on both sides who want to keep the emotion exploit and keep using that, others who want it completely done away with, and to have normal emotions rendered. And what's really great about this book is, so partly because it's from the perspective of Sojourner Joe, she is a human who you can see, obviously she's a Black woman who has a military background and a law enforcement, and she had seen all kinds of injustices growing up, and both from childhood to her military and law enforcement career. And she had to turn in a partner on the police force for police brutality. And she's this she comes in with this idealistic nature, who she's seen, all these injustices throughout her life. And she wants to be the person to, be the light within, these corrupted organizations and corrupted societies. And she takes that idealism with her to the Green Lantern Corps. And I really love this character because she is so relatable. She's so human, and because she deals with all of the stuff that we see day to day in our world. And then she sees echoes of that on this, planet far, far away. And she tries to be the both the mediator, but what I said earlier about how there's this false sense of peace, she comes to discover that and realizes that no, things can't just keep going on the way there are, with this just council overseeing everything and putting down protesters and quietly getting rid of people who are trying to disrupt the peace. She's trying to hold governments accountable and make a better society, and one that is more promising for everyone. And so there's a lot. I mean, it's a very complex plot. And so I don't have time to go through all of that, but that's what I took away from the book most, is that it echoes a lot of the socio-political issues that we face today with the Black Lives Matter movement and police brutality and so many other social issues that where it's like you look at a corrupt system or injustice in society, and it's easy to say like, oh, let's just all get along, but no, really, we have to get to the heart of the problem and address that and see, no, where is there injustice and where is there people suffering and who is the benefactor of that suffering, and so it's a really bold look at that, and I think a Green Lantern book like this, especially an indie one, is a perfect story to tackle those issues because the Green Lantern Corps is a police force, and they're ever since its creation, and particularly one that comes to mind is the Green Lantern Green Arrow series by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams that contrast these opposing views. It's the Green Lantern Corps has always been looked at as like could be idealistic, but also has many injustices and faults within it, and how do we look at that? So this really explores that, and I like that this book does not feature any of the other Lanterns like Hal or Guy Gardner or John Stewart. This is very much Sojourner Joe's story, and you see her as a rookie Green Lantern up against this massive threat. She's initially again going to investigate a murder, but then realizes she has to really do what's right for the entire civilization and get to the heart of this issue and fix the injustices here, and that's ultimately what her role is and her responsibility as a Lantern. So I don't. That's a lot to unpack there, but but that's kind of the gist of it. And do you have any questions about either narrative wise or any more about because like you said earlier, even if you don't know anything about Green Lantern stuff, this is a very accessible book, and I think I highly recommend it. It's the kind of comic that I would recommend to especially non-comic readers as much as comic readers. Anyone who's just like, oh, I don't really read comics, like this is a novel. With the illustrations, it's very in-depth and complex, and anyone who loves good sci-fi should check it out.
Now you said this is complete?
It is complete. It's 12 issues. So I would, and I would recommend getting the whole trade, because I remember when it was coming, I only read the collected version, and in the trade paperback, and so that is the one I recommend. This is one I could see people reading it in collected issues when it was coming out, but I like to get the whole story here because it is so dense and rich, and there's so much to dissect here. But this is a great book for a book club, or because there is so much to tackle from both a narrative standpoint, a sociopolitical lens, a character lens, all of that.
Okay. Yeah, I really like this as a concept. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself.
No worries.
It sounds like when you were describing it to me, the planet as a whole, before we get to Sojourner here, it's a very Star Trek idea.
Yeah.
Can we, obviously, what was it? Voyager did this at one point in time. I think Deep Space Nine did as well, of repressing emotions, and murder can't happen in this society, or if it does, you're punished for it extremely.
Right.
But
right.
How far can you suppress what is natural in humanity, this evil that we have in our souls, in our minds, and if you were able to find a way to do that, is it ethical to do so? Is it moral to do so? You're saying we're saving all these lives, but at the cost of expression and free will and freedom. But is it ultimately better for that to happen? That's I like when you bring up concepts like this, and I also like how you mentioned this as well. Putting it in the lens of Vertigo, maybe fully understand that this is in the universe, but is not beholden to that continuity. And we did that episode on the DC cosmology, and we're dealing with since, what was it, 1937?
38 was the 38 was the first appearance of Superman.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I'm thinking of Detective Comics 27,
which is 1939.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So it starts with Action Comics 1, Superman. 38. It is 2023. That's almost 100 years of continuity. That's a lot. Even if you excuse we have our Crisis on Infinite Earths in 86. And then we have New 52 in 2011 or
11,
14.
yes. Yep, it was
Okay.
2011.
Yeah. Okay. So that's still 12 years of a lot of muddled stuff that can happen. We know that happens in comics. So to have this, you have everyone knows the basic idea of what a Green Lantern is,
Hmm.
enough to where I don't need to go any further. And then you introduce a character like her, and I love the backstory you gave of her as well. Uh, that sounds like a ton of fun. Like for someone to grow immensely is like I was even looking it up too while you were talking. It's like, oh, she witnessed 9/11 and
Right,
said, "Oh,
right.
I'm going to do something about this."
Yep,
Join the was it the Army or Marines or something like that?
yep.
I've already
Hmm.
forgotten what I read.
But
And
yeah,
then
military.
becoming an
I don't
officer.
remember if it was. I don't remember if it was Army or Marines, but military, and then yeah, the law enforcement after
Yeah,
that. Yep, yep.
and you have this whole okay, doing a good thing as a cop, trying to protect the people around you, but you know not everyone's going to have that same idealism,
Hmm.
and they abuse their position. How do you
Hmm.
work with that?
Right.
This sounds like a really fun series. It's already done too, so I mean, I might have to check this sucker out.
I highly recommend it. It's a great read. That I think I first well I had seen the covers a while ago, but I didn't really know anything about it. And then I remember reading an article on Den of Geek last year about like gifts for DC fans for the holidays, and this was on there, and so I read the brief synopsis there, and then picked it up like earlier this year at the comic shop, and yeah, I just really fell in love with it right away. It's again, it's wonderful art, very gritty and also big spectacle. Really balances the character moments with the big space battles and and the intricacy designing each civilization that we each species that we see, and it's and like what I like too. I mean, about her origin, it's not revealed till later in the book. So initially, you're on just this like murder mystery train, and you get more of the civilization that she's been asked to protect, and then we learn more and more about the species history and this ongoing conflict, the emotion exploit, and then we get to her origin later. And I really like the narrative structure that N.K. Jemisin does. It really flows well, and yeah, like I said, it's just a great. You can clearly tell that she comes from a prose background and does these big epic novels. There's no way you can do a story like this in 5 or 6 issues. She needed a big 12 issue
Yes.
max series to do, and earns every page. And yeah, so could not recommend it enough. This I'm glad we could talk about this one last because this is
Yeah.
I think my highest recommendation.
Yeah. It shows a lot of faith in her too as a writer that they allowed
Mhm.
because this is her first comic, correct?
It is, but and DC has done that. Marvel has as well. They typically do this with stuff like this where it's non-continuity books. Like DC did a young adult imprint for a while, which is really good, and they did the same kind of thing where they recruited a writer named Danielle Page, who wrote this like Wizard of Oz universe series of novels, and they recruited her to write a Mara young adult graphic novel, and it did that with several others. And Marvel's done that as well with some young adult books, and I mean, even they got Ta-Nehisi Coates to write Black Panther and Captain America. So I mean,
Yes.
I think it's a great tactic, honestly. When you get the right writer, definitely bring in writers from other mediums who know comics and know the medium and who know how to tell a story in that, but in that respect. But yeah, I really like when they do that, and they can give these different voices a chance to shine.
All right. Well, that's what we had to recommend to you all for Comic Book Catch Up. Let us know what you're reading, what you want us to cover next time. I mean, I'm always happy to pick up something new to experience that. I mean, obviously, Marvel is kind of my comfort zone right now, and I'm slowly branching into DC. But there's plenty of other good stuff out there that if we're not aware of, tell us about it. Leave it in the comments below. Share this to continue to let people know about this. Thank you to our patrons who allow us to continue to be able to do what we do. We're very thankful for all that you do, and to you, the listener, as well. If you can't give anything, that's not your fault. Don't worry about it. We're grateful for who can give, and we're grateful for who can't. You guys are why we do this. It's a ton of fun. Thank you all. But remember, we're all the chosen people, a geekdom of